History of the Stijl movement. What is Stijl? Stijl translates to the style in Dutch and refers to the abstract art movement between the years 1917 to 1931. The visual language associated with Stijl primarily consisted of precise geometric forms and primary colors. This mainly included straight lines, squares, and rectangles.
Incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same.
Where was De Stijl from? De Stijl first found its home in Leiden, Netherlands.
Why was De Stijl? The country, despite its best attempts to stay neutral at all costs during World War I, created De Stijl as a reaction to the horrors it witnessed throughout that time. It was utopian industrialization in nature, and artists who partook in this art movement and saw it as a means of spiritual and social redemption. In appropriate response to the division and chaos of the Great War, it essentially wanted to be seen as a universal language, calling for spiritualized world order. Who was De Stijl? Two key figures of this movement are Piet Mondrian and Theo van Doesburg. Van Doesburg founded a contemporary journal called De Stijl to recruit like-minded members to form a new artistic collective that welcomed and expanded notion of art that blended utopian ideals with spiritual harmonies.
Nerd.
Piet Mondrian was born in Netherlands in 1872 and became a theorist and a writer as well as a painter who believed art reflected nature's underlying spirituality. He co-founded with Van Doesburg their De Stijl magazine journal, both believing they knew what it took to synthesize the simplest aspects of that natural world.
Nerds.
Mondrian, as a painter, was a very strict visionary for what a utopian society and the art of it would look like. This will be brought back later. Theo van Doesburg was born in 1883 in the Netherlands by the name of Christian Emilie Marie Couper, Princess of Genovia. He practiced writing, poetry, architecture, and painting, the latter of which he is most famously associated with for founding the art movement of De Stijl with other like-minded painters after serving in the Dutch army. He, along with Piet Mondrian and the other original members, published a periodical with the same name in 1917. Unlike Mondrian, Van Doesburg believed De Stijl should incorporate abstraction that invoked variety and uplifting energy that could achieve social order and universal harmony with its precise, orderly, geometric, and vibrant contrasting colors.
Piet Mondrian took the group's adoption of basic geometric shapes, forms, and simple lines as the purest representation of the human mind, which would best portray modern reality. He called it neoplasticism, a painting style denoting new art for the modern day, the plasticism referring to the forms and colors on the canvas.
Now for the artworks that define this movement. We have Piet Mondrian's 1921 composition with large red plane, yellow, black, gray, and blue. Like most of his works, it's asymmetrical and abstract, grounded by a single bold block of red paint. This oil-on-canvas work embodies the unique aesthetic of De Stijl, a limited color palette of red, blue, yellow, black, gray, and white, and geometric forms that ebb and flow. It was Mondrian's aim to make it his own style. He took the simplification of shape and line elements as the ideal visualization of universal spirituality and harmony. This is Mechano Dancer by Vilmos Huszar, made in 1922. This take on De Stijl is similar yet quite different from the movement's leaders. We see an absence of color and a human figure implied through the placement and layering of geometric shapes in horizontal, vertical, and diagonal lines. Mondrian probably wasn't a big fan of this. The composition is balanced and symmetrical, reflecting the movement's emphasis on order and harmony. The stark contrast between the black and white background and the bold colors of the dancers create a sense of tension and energy that reflects the movement's interest in modernity and innovation.
Next is Red and Blue Chair by Gerrit Rietveld, a well-known furniture designer. Despite being one of the earlier Stijl artworks started in 1918, it wouldn't be completed until 1923 when it got its infamous paint job that it would be considered a masterpiece of the Stijl movement. The design of the red and blue chair is notable for its use of cantilever construction, where the chair's legs and backrest are made from a single piece of wood that bends to support the weight of the sitter. This construction technique was innovative for its time and was a hallmark of the Stijl movement, interest in new materials and production methods, and challenged traditional notions of what defined paintings, sculptures, and architecture. The Rietveld Schroeder House was designed in 1924 by the, you guessed it, Gerrit Rietveld, for a recently widowed Truus Schroeder, a progressive woman who wanted a house that reflected her modernist ideals. He, as someone who went against tradition, understood exactly what she wanted: a space that freed her. His first attempt at designing a house was made to embody Stijl, from unifying horizontal and vertical lines and using its palette of primary colors alongside white, gray, and black, to utilizing sliding door mechanisms for flexibility and how one would walk in the home, or transforming its interior to create separate rooms for privacy. The building emphasizes its architectural elements: slabs, posts, and beams, reflecting the movement's emphasis on form, construction, and function in its architecture and design.
This one is Arithmetic Composition by Theo van Doesburg, made in 1929 near the end of his life. The painting, along with its title, reflects Stijl's interest in the use of mathematical principles and the idea of a universal language of art and design. The painting's use of simple shapes and primary colors was intended to create a visual language that could be understood by anyone, regardless of their cultural or linguistic background. Where it departures from it is by the arrangement of the 4 dark squares in a diagonal line in his canvas plane. This simple change of line direction was the reason for the Stijl downfall. Stijl's dissolution was predicted long before van Doesburg's Arithmetic Composition. Around 1923 to 1924, Theo van Doesburg had a desire for more diagonal lines and energy in Stijl art. It is said that while Mondrian was introverted, van Doesburg was eccentric, possibly a cue as to why their ideas differed. But in Mondrian's eyes, that was betrayal to the entire movement's fundamental principles. Simply put, their differences in artistic ideas for Stijl became too difficult for each other to accept. Piet would continue working in neoplasticism, and Theo would continue with the Stijl publication and elementarism, his response to Mondrian's neoplasticism, until his death in 1931.
Despite its short life of 14 years, Stijl was the spearhead that led to innovation in the art world and outside of it. It was an influential part in the creation of the Bauhaus movement, which incorporated some of its concepts into the school. Its use of flat, geometric surfaces with little or no ornamentation would bleed into the international style's architectural design throughout the 1920s to the 1970s. Its contrast of bold primary colors and monotone blacks, grays, and whites, alongside shapes or lines of varying sizes and widths, demanded attention from the viewer to look at it in whatever form it occupies, whether that be on canvas, in a home, in clothing, or pop culture. Its principal philosophy, one that still continues to be strived for today: creation of art that unifies everyone across barriers in a universal language.